I'm Dick Calloway. I'm the president of the Tryon History Museum, and I'm not here to say anything about Dean. I'm going to leave. I've known him for 8 years, but I'm going to leave this to people who have known him even longer. I know he's hanging his head back there now that he's heard me say that. This is all because we know how much he loves to be the center of attention. But at any rate, I want to talk for just a minute about the Tryon History Museum. I'm going to leave the roast to others. I'll be introducing people who can take it from me in just a minute. But I want to focus for a moment on the museum, what it is, what's its mission. And appreciate everyone being here tonight. I know you're here not only because you love Dean and love to see him ridiculed, but you love the cause we're serving as well. Our mission is to tell Tryon's story. That just shows you that being simple and being easy are not necessarily the same thing. Tryon has quite a story to tell, and I don't think I need to educate anybody in the room on that. But I doubt there's a town this size in the country that has town's heritage of arts, crafts, equestrian activities, viticulture, architecture, and everything else that we could probably spend half the night naming. We are moving into new quarters. We have been in what I call the basement, really the lower Maple Street level of the Cox Drugstore building, properly Cox Pharmacy building, properly the Wilkins building, for the last 8 years. A microbrewery is going in there with a brew pub upstairs. We needed to move. It was a daunting challenge in some ways because it's going to cost us more, but that's okay. We're going to recoup that because we are visible up there, we're accessible, and we can also serve our dual role as museum and town visitor center. And we are the official visitor center for the town of Tryon. In our role as a visitor center, we can welcome people, acquaint them with the town, help them make plans, and spread the word all at the same time, which feeds back into the museum's mission, and hope that others will go out and spread the word from there. We hope eventually that we can actually help serve as a catalyst for economic development in Tryon. We're going to be right there in the center of everything, and we see that as part of our mission. This, as I said, is the Wilkins building, and this just happens to be the Wilkins building's 100th anniversary. It was built in 1923. So we're hoping we can be in there, upstairs, installed, where the pharmacy used to be, the front part of where the pharmacy used to be. We're not going to have quite all their space, but we're going to have most of it. We hope we can be there by the end of the year. Construction is slated, the demolition phase has already taken place. The real construction phase is scheduled to begin in June, next month, and we hope to be in by the end of the year. But one more thing I want to say is, we'll be there as a museum and a visitor center, many new exhibits, and we have sponsorships available for exhibits if you're interested in that. But we want to be more than just a static presence. We want to be able to take our mission out into the community. We're doing this with Tales of Tryon. We've had a brief interruption. We've been so busy with other planning early this year, but we're going to have 4 of them between now and the end of the year. In June, June, July, August, and late August, and then early November. I'll just briefly tell you what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the year. June 15th, Warren Carson is going to speak on the history of the Roseland Center, and it's going to be held at Roseland. I'm not going to go into much detail about the others, but we are going to have another equestrian program, something we went over quite well a couple of years ago. And then we are going to have, who else but Dean Trakas come back, if we can get him there on time. And we'll make it, I don't want to give him a loophole, but we'll make it work even if he doesn't get there on time. We did last time. This is going to be architecture, Tryon Architecture Part 3. And then close to the end of the year, we're going to have a program on women artists in Tryon, visual artists and literary artists. We're also planning to launch a quarterly newsletter to keep people informed of what we're doing, to start a outreach program into the schools, and we have been working on a website for a long time. We're trying to realize that the perfect can be the enemy of the good, and just get this website finished. But we have high hopes for it. It's going to be the center of everything, the information center for the information center, if you will. And we'll help you keep up with schedule through that, and we'll be having more to say about fundraising activities. We're doing a golf tournament the last week in September 28th, at the Tryon Country Club. We're trying something a little bit new and different there, but we're going to make use of the historic capital that gives us, and the house tour planned for next spring in 2024. So, without further ado, I'll turn this over to the one and only Pam Stone, actress, writer, comedian, equestrian, lots of things. I could go on there. But more than anything, a civic mainspring, a civic linchpin, who's always willing to lend a helping hand to good causes. So without further ado, I'll give it to Pam, and the roast can begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for whipping them into a frenzy for us, Dean. So, thank you for coming tonight. What a privilege to be here. Have a little mood lighting, please. Thanks, that's great. This is especially for Dean. Dean, can you come on out here, Dean? Come on out here, my little monkey boy. This is... Do you remember watching Tonight's Show when, like, Bette Midler sang for Johnny?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Oh, it's good. Are you ready?
No, sorry. No, really.
Trakas roasting on an open fire. Good friends nipping at his nose. He's an architect available for hire. A barn builder engaged by all the pros. Everybody knows. Everybody knows Dean Trakas! Sit down, my kingdom, for some chloroform and a double bag. Thank you. Sit down. Right there.
What? Oh.
That's mine.
Oh, that's yours? You're lucky.
I haven't started drinking yet because I find if I drink before I do a show, I end up doing humor uniquely funny to me. And you paid $61, about $65, right? $65 for it. Sit down, sit.
Why?
Sit.
Why?
My dogs are more obedient than you are. Sit. I've known Dean just long enough to know that I say the same things to him that I say to my dogs. Like, sit down, stop, what have you got in your mouth? Drop it. Drop it. It is his birthday, and I have to say, I think it's wonderful that Dean is spending his 61st birthday with us during this long, slow, torturous donkey ride through hell that we're going to put him through tonight.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, of everybody here and all the roasters that I'm going to be bringing out in just a minute, I'm the one who's known him the shortest period of time because I only met Dean through our mutual friend Elizabeth, who hired Dean to draw up plans for the stable, for the barn she's building. And I tell you what, I mean, the guy has done houses, but the barns, I could not believe it. I'm looking at these plans and I'm like, do you really want a fire pit? In the hayloft? Would horses actually use a library and a humidor? But hey, I'm sure it's all perfectly fine. I think we need to get this show rolling. What do you say? Let's introduce and bring out all our roasters en masse. I'm going to introduce them one at a time later when they sit down. But come on, guys and gals. Come on out. Come on out. Come on out. Take your seat. Take your breath. Thanks for dressing for tonight's evening. We really appreciate it. Thanks for going out of the way there. All right, I'm going to bring up our first roastie. Children. You have the attention span of puppies. Sit. Dean. Get No, get over here. You know what? You can try to pal around with them thinking that's going to make them ease off on the game. It ain't going to work. Sit down. Shut up. All right. We're going to open the wine in just a second. Every time it gets a little difficult for you, we're going to have a shot. All right. To make it. So you know our first roaster. I know you know the first roaster tonight. I certainly do. We love him to death. Chris Bartol is a semi-retired photographer. He's just wonderful. He grew up in Tryon, and he's a descendant of the Erskine family, who were creative and very generous, and one of them was responsible for establishing this Fine Arts Center. So all the way back then, and he is, most importantly to me, a beer maker. And he's an all-around volunteer. So please welcome to the podium, won't you, Chris Bartol! Just a minute. Hang on, I had it for my night.
He's only 97 years old.
Yes.
Go ahead. Come here.
Oh, like to look at your material? I would not.
Come on. We want to see, we want the whole thing.
Would that has the... Do you get the note?
I did.
You can't say that. Those were the two words that one said cannot say. That we could be like innuendo, but you can't prepare.
That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean,
Okay.
Man, I guess you're disqualified. You may leave now.
I need that platform now. Go for it, Chris.
I got a little bit more left here. Ladies and gentlemen, and friends of the Tryon Museum, I'm delighted to be here to say a few words about my friend, my dear friend, Dean Trakas. I've known Dean for about 20 years or so, and I've become good friends lately. And a few years ago, Andy Millard called to ask if I would be interested in joining a group of friends to go on a sailing and fishing trip in Nassau. Needless to say, I was honored and thrilled. Since a few others were first-timers on this trip, we were invited to Andy's house to discuss the trip and what was needed. Dean was also invited, so I called Dean up to say that I'd be happy to pick him up. We arranged at the appointed time, and when Andy greeted us at the door, the look on his face was priceless. It seems we were on time. Perhaps the first time for Dean in years. It was then I began to realize why I may have been invited. Someone was needed to look after Dean. Do you have your passport?
Yeah.
Is it in date? Why don't you have your plane tickets yet? And no, you may not take your keyboard. It has been the joke for other trips. If Dean is going, then Chris has to go too. Another adventure was an idea that I had to try brewing beer. Of course, Dean was wanting in on it since we both appreciate good beer. So I purchased from a dear friend who was a certified home brewer. Much of his brewing equipment was for sale since he was moving and had no space for it for this hobby in his new home. So on brew day, I was set up on the back deck with burners, 15-gallon brew pots, and of course cold beer to drink while we made new beer. Dean was there to learn the craft, but of course he was late. Not too sure if he remembers the steps, but The first batch was somewhat a success. During the process, we noticed a large black snake slowly emerging from the utility shed, taking one look and then meandering off. So we thought perhaps we needed a name for our new brewery. Hence, Rat Snake Brewery of Tryon was born. We named the snake Barkus, for Bartol and Trakas. I thought that was important. Unfortunately, 2 more brews later did not turn out so well, and with COVID, sort of put a stop to all of our efforts. The idea of a roast for Dean and his 61st birthday was proposed. Wanda May asked if I would say a few words. So the idea of a eulogy came So, in closing, with apologies to the playwriters of Greater Tuna, I would like to give this homily to my dear friend who I'm happy to say is not deceased. So here goes. This is the Reverend Bartol, and I want to say just a few words about a friend of mine and a friend of Tryon. Nicholas Dean Trakas spent his whole life in service to his community, his country, and his Lord. And we're sure that when the roll is called up yonder, he'll be there. He was a friend who made hay while the sun shined, but always, I say always, let a smile be his umbrella. He always kept his sunny side up and always saw the silver lining behind every cloud. A friend who took no wooden nickels, nor threw caution to the wind, but looked before he leapt and never got in over his head. No, he kept his head, but all about him were losing theirs and blaming it on him. He kept a stiff upper lip and his nose to the wheel. About this man we can truly say he was one of a kind, a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny. He was one for all and all for one, and to his own self true. And I can tell you this, he did it his way. He was a serious-minded friend who let bygones be bygones, but he remembered the Alamo. About this man we can truly say he was the cream in Tryon's coffee. And the vermouth in his gin. He fought fire with fire and he kept the home fires burning. And when he couldn't stand the heat, he got out of the kitchen. He would walk that extra mile. He would walk it softly, but he'd carry a big stick. He was a pepperer, a man's man, early to bed, early to rise. He laid the cards on the table, gathered at the river, brought in the sheaves. Hunger was his best pickle.
Hey, what the hell that's supposed to mean?
He was a friend who wouldn't fire until he saw the whites of their eyes and whistled a happy little tune. Praised God and praised that he had passed the ammunition. For he had not yet begun to fight. For never, ever, ever did I hear the man say, die. He just did. He was a fine, upstanding civil servant who practiced what he preached, put his best foot forward, and his money where his mouth was. And when the going got tough, he was gone. It's not easy to find the words to describe such a man, but I've done my best. We commend his soul to you, Lord. I, the Reverend Bartol, recommend him. Amen, Lord, and amen. Dean, it's a pleasure to be here tonight and to roast you and honor you. Happy birthday, my friend, my brother.
They're not all going to be that sweet. They're not going to be all that nice. Yeah. By the way, that $61 ticket that you bought, I can only assure you did not go into the investment of the wine. I'll get through it because I am a child of Depression-era parents, and we don't believe in wasting anything. It's going to be a little difficult. So I'm excited to bring up our next roaster because he's a dear friend of mine. He actually, if you enjoy reading my column at all, is Jeff Bird, who started all of that when he was took over the reins of the Tryon Daily Bulletin, and this before he became a real estate mogul. Which, can you get me off your e-blast? I'm on your real estate e-blast like every freaking day. Man, we're excited to offer new properties. It's like this. Everybody, you know, everybody knows Dean, of course. It is Dean, right? Everybody knows Jeff Bird, and the best thing that you're about to hear is the fact that these two knuckleheads have known each other forever, and Jeff has all kinds of delicious dirt on Dean. So welcome to the stage, please, Jeff Bird!
Thank you, Ms. Stone. I offer my thanks to Auntie Pam with some trepidation, as she's probably already has her get the hook face on. I saw what you did to that poor guy at the Rotary Shrimp Fest.
Oh, yeah.
Poor dude was only trying to get up to go to the bathroom. But thanks, Pam, for being here, and thanks to all of you for coming out. It's truly an honor for me to be here tonight to celebrate our dear friend, Frida Zenodopoulos. Where are you, girl? There you are. Now, we all know it's Mr. Dean Trakas' special night. We're gathered here together with Will and Anna and Ignacio, and surely the spirits of Kelly Hearn Trakas and Holland Brady, to give tribute to a gentleman who has wormed his way into all our hearts here in the seedier sections of Tryon. To start, don't we have to acknowledge how generous it is for Dean to sit through a public roasting? I mean, not even a proper roasting by the American Institute of Architects or his esteemed colleagues at the Heritage Society of Upstate Cretans. No, he's got to suffer in silence as this bunch of jabronis wrap it up at his expense. And why? Why would Dean agree to suffer this horrible public embarrassment? To raise support for the Tryon Museum, just one of the many nonprofits Dean serves. You know, it's said that if you've seen one nonprofit, you've seen one nonprofit. The only thing they all have in common is that around here, they all have Dean on their board. Word on the street, Dino, about 63% of them are happy about it. When she invited me to give this little talk, Tryon Museum debutante, Wanda May, promised there was a ton of online material about Dean to draw from. So being the efficient little busybody that I am, I went to my own personal artificial intelligence chatbot and asked, "Hey baby, what's the latest grooving with that mad pianist, Professor Trakas?" Helen laughed, Siri laughed, Alexa laughed, chatbot had squat. Then I thought, why not use this time, this precious time, all of us gathered here together, to try to help the guy. I mean, you know he needs it if you've seen him moping around these last few months at the approach of his 61st birthday. Cheer up, pal. I'm going to be suggesting a methodology to assist you in regaining insight, balance, and perspective. A method invented in Greece, of course. Dean's so proud of his Greek cultural heritage, the fount of drive and intelligence that landed the Trakases among the most respected families of southeastern Lower Dean's Mediterranean ancestors certainly had a remarkable little burst of energy there for about 500 years, from 800 to 300 BC, inventing the alphabet, democratic politics, mathematical proof, and carrying new waves of thinking in arts, architecture, warfare, and religion. Greeks haven't done much lately. Nonetheless, Dean's library is full of books about how the Greeks invented the odometer, the water wheel, incontinence underwear. I was reading myself just the other day, and did you know that it was a Greek physician who first invented the vasectomy? His original instructions were as follows: Euclipides nuts! Anyway, Dean, to help you get over this hump, I thought we might use a method of analysis proposed by an Athenian who said that when you don't know the right way forward, you might make progress by making a list and eliminating all the wrong ways. So, buddy, if you've been feeling stuck, say in your job, your family relationships, after tonight, your trashed reputation, the via negativa may be exactly what you need. The idea is like the Tao of the sculptor who looks at a block of stone and sees his job as simply carving away everything that is not the owl or the bear that's already contained within. That is, to get to the essential you, Dean, you might try eliminating the things that are not you. All the glittery things you've allowed to glom on. For example, your looks. Your piles of money. Your social media following. To begin, Dino, each day recite all the things that you are not, such as, I'm not always the loudest person in every room. Okay, let's take it for a spin. What do you say? Dean, you're not only an architect. I mean, authentic guys like you, Dean, are not just a job title. Of course you're gifted to designing beautiful homes. Did you all know Dean cut his teeth studying in the capitals of Europe? He made up little mnemonic ditties to sing while hiking the Appian Way. The abacus connected to the calathos, the lintel connected to the Capitol. Here's a new one for you to sing on your way to work, Dean.
Okay.
The rotunda connected to the diet. Certainly. Dean's a fine architect whose work is taking a well-deserved place in this town's storied architectural history. A history, by the way, that Dean presented in 2 packed-out Tales of Tryon talks. But, being modest, what Dean's slideshow didn't include was his own work. And I wanted to correct that lapse tonight. A Trakas cousin in Morganton dug up these rare pictures for me from Dean's early period. Now remember, things happen when you're young, new at your craft, not used to communicating well with others. To this day, Dean swears he stamped verify and field on every page of the book. Dean was idealistic in his youth, and he hoped this home might evoke memories of a happy tune. Gray skies are gonna clear up, brush off the clouds and cheer up. Well, you know, that's true because Dean is a perpetually happy guy, and his enthusiasm affects all of the unvaccinated around him. When Dean met this client, she was giving broth and whippings to her children. After a few months with Dean, she was saying, "Thank you, Lord, for sending my children bread," and then kissing them all gladly before sending them to bed. Let's just rip off one more Band-Aid, buddy, to be sure you have the via negativa well in hand. Dean, you're not only a good friend, but just between us chickens here tonight, you could do better. I mean, you remember that time on the pop-up sandbar, somewhere between Nassau and Freetown, after Bruce, the boat captain, delivered the 4th batch of that concoction he kept mixing up? You remember?
Oh, yeah.
When Ian started trying to kiss me on the lips?
No.
Okay. Ian started trying to kiss me on the lips? You remember? You could have stood up for your drunk buddy's honor, man. Instead, you went off with the other guys in the skiff, doing wheelies around the bay, while I went back to the boat. Let's be honest here, a little bit traumatized. Until the skiff came alongside, and Harry Grimes tried to reboard before it was tied off, and the skiff drifted back out to sea, and good old Harry was left hanging, armpits over the railings, casually chatting as if we was at a church tea. That cheered me up again. Still, the whole good friend thing, though, Dino, too confusing. Strip it away and cast it into the sea. I know it'll be hard. Face that mirror, naked and alone, before God. I mean, who wouldn't want to grab onto the fig leaf? But I'm a musician! Dean's proud of his musical talents, I know, because I heard him practicing in the shower when we stayed at my uncle's house in Houston. Do, re, mi, 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 mi. Put it all aside, Dean. You can do it. Let all that extra baggage go. Historian, gourmet cook, hilarious storyteller, barroom piano player, friend to legions. I know when you reach the end and look in the mirror, you'll still find the gregarious man we all still feel fortunate to know, looking back at you. An exemplar of intelligence and kindness, one who faces life with grace and a gentle, true spirit. In summary, let me just say you've got nothing but blue skies all over the place. So put on a happy face. Happy birthday, Dean.
That's how you do a roast. Don't try to miss on the notes. I actually think you look great. I think you look great. I mean, if people are making fun of the way you look because you're older, I think you look wonderful. You do. I think so.
You'd only know me win.
If I'd only known you would. Well, that was probably before I was vaccinated. But the point that I'm making, and you know, you're not getting less hair, Dean. You're getting more head. That's the important thing. Hey, there's no kids here. And there's really nothing wrong. You actually have a ton of hair. It's just that it's migrated out of your ears and nose now. So this off and your back. Which makes chicks so hot. How about a little roasting now here from our next roaster here. Julie Calhoun. Yep, she is another long time she has a long time history, actually, is what I'm trying to say, with Tryon and Holy Cross Episcopal Church. She is a graphic artist, and I mean graphic in that term, not in the kind that you're thinking about. Although I don't know, it's a free country. She is a businesswoman. She is a toy maker. So graphic artist, toy maker, I'm really curious to see those. She's a rug hooker. You're a hooker. She's a rug hooker. She's... Remember Dudley Moore? remember that? You're a hooker. I thought I was just doing really well with you. She has rescued 3 historic Tryon businesses, which is a really big deal. And she runs a great shop in the Jackson building. So please welcome to the podium. Come on up here, Julia Calhoun.
evening, everybody. I was not originally supposed to be back in town for this wonderful event, but I talked to Wanda on the phone, and she said I was going to be on stage with a whole flock of really good-looking men. Well, I got the hell home. I have known Dean Trakas since he was 14 years old. Yeah, I know. It's very sad, but true. My grandfather opened an office supply business in Spartanburg in 1904, and then my father took it over, and after my father passed, my husband was running it. And one day, this young man walked in suit and tie, very serious, and asked if he could speak to the manager. And so Dan said, certainly, and Dean, at the age of 14, had come to apply for a job. Well, after they talked a little bit, Dan thought he'd be a very good worker, and he was interested in coming after school. And so I've known Dean now for about 112 years. And when the business put in an art gallery, which was one of my father's fondest wishes, we had a big gala reception to celebrate the opening of the gallery. And there was Dean at the door in his suit and tie, ready to greet visitors as they came in. We explained to him it wasn't totally necessary, but he felt that the occasion warranted a very somber approach to the evening. So he stood there valiantly, and a little while he disappeared, and he reappeared with this very lovely podium, which we had no idea where he had gotten, and with a guest book so everybody could sign in. And in honor of what was an absolutely wonderful, joyous evening, he had borrowed the podium from the funeral home. Yes, indeed it does. Anyway, he ended up growing up. I, for the occasion, wore grown-up shoes, which I don't do for just everybody. So I'm delighted to be back in town and to be here in person to celebrate Dean's 61st birthday and maybe 112 more. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. He is only 61, you're really quite young, which is like, I think it is 112 in architect years. It may be.
Dog years.
It could, well, no, that's comedy's not for everybody, Dean, but that's all right. So, you just keep trying to knock it out of the park. Have another drink. Bringing up to the podium now actually is a bit of a hero of mine and probably yours. Scott Lane moved here from Charleston. His family's renovated many of the Tryon downtown properties. We owe Scott and his wife a huge thank you, because the Tryon Cinema, the theater, is really, it is our anchor business. And let me tell you something, every town is jealous of our theater. Please welcome, great gratitude, Scott Lane. It's like Pottersville, but in a good way.
Thank you, Pam, for giving me a few minutes to chat about my friend Dean Trakas, who we got maybe another minute or two before that breaks up. Anyway, and for the rest of the roasters, Pam, thank you for leading the sheep to slaughter tonight. Chris, for being Dean's ultimate bail bondsman and leash carrier. Jeff, still exploring the no man's land between the Fourth Estate and the real estate. Julia, kind of erudite there, knowing you know what the Fourth Estate is. That's pretty good. Julia, toying with our affections constantly. Ben, F you all the time. Sorry, that's a Furman joke. Sorry about that. Rob, I thought I was following you, which is kind of funny because it's pretty easy to follow Rob. He's about twice my height. And then Andy back there, captain, my captain, always the first one in the life raft. Appreciate that. Bree and Steve, who proved without a doubt that the nut doesn't fall far from the family tree. Or that blood is thicker than ouzo. You guys get it. And then Mike Karaman, who's never followed one of Dean's designs ever. So glad you're up here to defend everyone else. So all of us are from pretty familiar turf here. We're working on a project to raise money, and Dean is just sitting and drinking and smoking a cigar. And this is kind of familiar for all of us. So why am I here? Because damn it, I earned it. I've lost money professionally and personally with this guy. And if you haven't yet lost money with me, you will someday. Don't worry. They say that working with friends is the easiest way to lose them. Maybe. Hopefully. We'll work on that. Honestly, though, when I got the email from Wanda, I swear, I looked at it and I said, celibacy roast? What is a celibacy roast? You know, and I turned to Gail and I said, what's a celibacy roast? And she goes, yeah, that's about right. It's all right. Okay. So on to misquote a great Roman by way of an Englishman. I come not to bury my friend Dean, but to praise him. But I have to apologize first. I'm a little behind the curve with the Hollywood writer's strike and everything. So I did what any good intelligent writer does. I stole material. So just like Jeff, I went to the Chat GPT and I inserted roast of Greek architect that cooks and plays piano. I got stuff back. You got squat, I think was the quote. I got stuff. So anyway, I got three good jokes. You guys decide. I don't know. It's a computer. I have to say, our honoree tonight is one of the most creative architects I've met. I mean, who else could design a building that looks like a giant block of feta cheese? That's a quote. This is why humanity is going to be fine. Don't worry. I heard your architectural designs are as solid as a moussaka recipe. Unpredictable and full of layers. And they say you can tell a lot about a person from their hobbies. In your case, it's clear that architecture and piano playing are your passions, and cooking, well, that's just a convenient way of putting out fires in the kitchen. So anyway, not too bad. But I think I got the best joke of the night out front in the lobby. And somebody said, how do you get Dean to come to dinner? Invite him to lunch. I'm not saying he's slow, or old-fashioned, or traditional, or deliberate, or from another era, or paper, because all of you are thinking that. I don't need to say it. But seriously, how many of you in the audience are currently waiting on a set of plans from Dean? How many of you thought that coming here tonight would make that better? There you go. So, okay. Two architects and Dean walk into a bar. Mies van der Rohe, great modernist, takes a sip of his rosé. See, there you go. He's a real architect. Less is more. Form must always follow function. A house is just a machine to live in. Frank Gehry, next to him, says, the great postmodernist with his craft beer, says, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Less is not more. Less is a bore. Come on, architecture has to offer complexity. Yes. Has to offer contradiction. Yes. Then they turn to Dean, who kind of looks at them and says, you know, we Greeks, we invented architecture. And then he gets up and he walks out of the bar. And then Van der Rohe and Gehry are looking at each other, shrugging like, I thought he was with you. Who's he? And Dean sneaks back in to pick up his ouzo. I mean, maybe the Greeks invented architecture, and maybe they kicked off Western civilization. And Jeff had a whole list of great Greek, inventions. I mean, according to Dean, they invented everything, including sex, right?
Don't go there.
I mean, we're thankful that the Romans introduced women to the idea. I mean, Dino's a true Greek, absolutely. Greek to the core. But he failed Greek mythology at Clemson. I mean, he kept saying over and over, I don't understand, it must be my Achilles elbow. I mean, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. He's always said he had a body of a Greek god. We had to pull him aside and say, Buddha was not Greek. Anyway, I mean, he's also a great piano player, prolific piano player. I had to look up prolific. It just means loud. Not that impressive. I prefer to listen to Dean's music in high def, which means I either have to be high or deaf to listen. Preferably 1 or 2 rooms away. Okay, last joke, real quick. We'll get out of here. Knock, knock. Dino. Did nobody tell you what a great guy he is? And that, my friend, at the tender age of 61, created a remarkable legacy in friendship and family, and this community is completely indebted to you. I, however, am not. And that's a good thing. To my friend and partner in past, present, and future crimes, love you.
From your film. Sit down, Dean. I did. I saw pictures of Dean when he was like 21, and he was a Greek guy. And now he just looks like a goddamn Greek. It is Dean, right? It is Dean. So we all know Andy Millard. Don't you just love living a trial? I mean, everybody just knows everybody, and it's even just to give introductions. People are like, we know Andy, he doesn't. But I'm going to read a little bit of your intro from Wanda, because she frightens me. If you know Wanda and George, if you look under George's collar, you'll see a shot collar there. Every time he tries to correct a story, she's telling him, I don't think so. He's like, Andy's an all-around great guy. This is what Wanda wrote, and it's true. He is star of stage and public education. He started a financial firm concentrating on helping women with investment advice. We love that. He got the ball rolling downtown by renovating the historic train depot. We've seen what a fantastic job that is and what it brings to the town. He worked tirelessly for the Chamber of Commerce, especially on the barbecue festival. And he and Dean are the Tryon Midnight celebrities. And if you've never seen the ball drop, and we are talking about the New Year's ball.
I see the other.
That's what Dean, I'm thinking hacky sack a lot of the times. You're out of it. Please welcome to the podium our own Andy Millard.
Certainly. Okay, well, thank you so much, Pam. And yes, I'm scared of Wanda too, so
We're all scared.
we're all scared of Wanda. That's why everybody's here. Let's see, I think I can tell you guys this, I got me a little clicker here. Let's see if it works. Yes, yeah, we're gonna do a little slideshow here. Now, you all know Dean, but you don't quite know him exactly the same way I do. Dean is a handsome devil. as you know, we all know that Dean is a handsome devil. I mean, he is a good-looking man. Just ask him. And yeah, I lied about that. So I'm being nice. Yeah, wait till you get to the bad stuff. But he's not only, you know, when he was young and went to Julia's father's place all dressed in the coat and tie, I mean, he always dresses to the nines. I mean, he dresses like, he goes to, I've seen him in Brooks Brothers so many times, it's not even funny. I mean, he is, not only does he dress nice, but he is a rugged outdoorsman, as you can tell. The thing about him, you see, he just got back here from a hike. We were in New Mexico. He'd been hiking all day. He just got back. But the thing about Dean is that he hikes with his shoes off. Come on. All right, there we go. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, he hikes with his shoes off, which is okay. Because you think, going up in those mountains, that he would get, you know, like sore feet. He's got feet like a hobbit. I mean, you should see this guy's feet. They are as wide as they are long. And he's a troublemaker from way back. But, oh, wait a minute, I went over to, but then sometimes they need a little bit of care. He needs to get like a little pedicure. And I can tell you, it's not fun being that guy's pedicurist. It's a traumatic experience. Now, he is a renowned architect, as you know. Renowned. He takes meticulous care of the buildings he designs. I mean, the finest craftsmanship. It's got to be just perfect in order for Dean to approve it and sign off on it. Here he is. Let's see if this one goes. Okay, there we go. Too far. Back, there we go. Here he is, about to sign off on one of his famous beach homes. It is just about finished here, and his builder, Mike, who's the guy on the right, Mike is the builder there, and yeah, this is about the best that either one of them can do. When you put them together, that's kind of what you're going to get. So, but really, you've heard us talk about the boat trips, the sailing trips out on the bounding main, and we have taken a number of those. And Dean is a really powerful mariner. You can tell him, look how heroic he looks there behind the wheel. The truth is, he gets seasick. Yes, and I know that ocean is a beautiful color blue. He's about to change the color there. And sometimes there are places on the boat where we will not allow him to come. For example, the upper deck, which is the top bar, you got to climb up this little ladder here to get up to the upper deck. The reason we don't let him up there is that he might fall off into the ocean, and it's entirely possible we might not stop to pick him up. So, beyond that, when he gets on shore, okay, we're going a little too fast. When he gets on shore, he makes friends with most people, but especially with fellow Greeks. Here's a guy, you might be able to see a really nice yacht behind this guy. I'm not sure if he was the captain of the yacht, a crew on the yacht, the cook on the yacht, the owner of the yacht. Didn't matter. Dean loved him, and the guy loved Dean right away. We were in Nassau one night. Dean and a bunch of guys showed up at a Greek restaurant. The Greek owner comes up. Everybody Greeks there, I mean, they're like, I don't know what the word is, but it's kind of creepy. And Dean's ordering food. The guy says, yes, order more food. And Dean says, yes, we got everything. So they get this food, they eat, they drink, they are married. And the guy comes along later and hands him a bill for, I don't know, like $500 or something. Dean's like, I thought it was free. It was not free. So, but
Not only is he a great mariner, a great outdoorsman, an incredible architect, he's also an amazing athlete. I mean, you can look at him set up to take a shot on the golf course there, and a shot at the golf cart is a concern. You see, for most normal golfers, the way he's set up there and the way that golf cart is sitting there, you might be a little afraid for the golf cart. You needn't worry, because I don't know if you can see, there's the ball. That's after he hit it. But look at the follow-through, huh? Poetry in motion. Not only that, he drives into the water hazards. But, we'll get to that next one in a minute. But, still, he's taller than he looks, right? And when it's all said and done, what the heck is this? These slides are flying all over the place, Tyler. Okay, we're going to back up one. What the heck? Okay, hold on. Forward one. Okay, we're going to do the ear pulling method from now on. Okay, so next. Okay, there we go. So, driving home from the golf course, nobody makes fun of him. No two fingers pointing up behind him. But whenever he gets in front of a piano, or there's a piano, we're walking through a building. We find ourselves walking through these buildings that have pianos in them. And wherever there's a piano, Dean sits down and bam, he's there. He's playing the piano, doesn't even ask questions. But, you know, you can tell from this picture, he's very careful about COVID. Because he doesn't breathe through his nose. He's a mouth breather. So he plays there, and if you can see the ladies in the back who work there, they're like, who is this guy? And who told him he could play that piano? But he's always there when somebody needs a helping hand. We had a friend who had a mud flood in their basement, a literal mud flood in their basement, and the guys all got together and we went there and we dug it out for him and we worked with him for days and days. And this was a picture at the end of a particularly hard, long day, and you can see Dean's right there, but of course he's the only one who's not dirty. Everybody else is filthy except for Dean. And Scott Lane in the green, but we won't mention that. So, oh yeah, we're doing the ear thing. So when we go to the Bahamas and sometimes, we all get together, you see, it looks like we're all happy, one big happy bunch of guys. We're so happy with each other. What you don't see in this picture is that we had just now barely voted not to drown Dean. He barely escaped with his life on that one. But here's another one where he barely escaped with his life. We were anchored in this little area, and we knew this river it was not really a river, it just kind of goes up forever to nothing. And so we said, Dean, if you want to get in that kayak and kayak up that river, there is a beautiful waterfall up there. There are no waterfalls in the Bahamas. It's flat. But he didn't know that, so we sent him up there. He says, oh, what? No, we don't want that one. There we go. And he says, okay, here I go. So he took off. We didn't see him for 3 days. We thought we'd escaped him, but just as we were pulling up anchor to leave, here he comes back. Okay, we'll go to that next one, Tyler. Now, you have seen Dean, you've heard his laugh, but you haven't heard it really. Let's listen. If you listen, I dare you not to laugh at this little video, because if you listen carefully, you will hear him at his most full-throated laugh.
It makes me think of
the little guys.
Piggy from what?
Dean's not in there, but you're going to hear him.
Watch out for that bag. to get around without me.
You hear, Dean? That really happened, as you can imagine. And the person who got bit did give me specific permission to run that tonight, and I appreciate it. But Dean, we do love you. He's got the sweetest, most infectious smile. He's just an all-around good guy. He's a great sport. Dean, keep looking for the end of that rainbow, and one day, brother, you are gonna find it. Love you, brother.
Excellent, Andy. Oh, that was great. Yeah, and he does have the best laugh, doesn't he? So every time I hear it, it just reminds me of, and I'll get you and your little dog too. It's the same little, right? It's the same thing. So I went a little out of order because I'm sorry, Wanda. I was like following the intros, but you know at this point, who cares, right? So, but I'm particularly happy to bring up our next roaster because he's a good friend of mine. We both go to Holy Cross Church. And actually, when I've done gigs around town and we've done some benefits for veterans together, I've had Ben open for me, which has always been a pleasure because he's so very funny and everybody knows him around town. He's just an all-around good guy. Please welcome Ben Davis!
I got to tell you that when I first heard that we were going to roast Dean tonight, I had reservations.
So did I.
That's on the punchline!
First of all, it's sort of redundant. I mean, if you equate roasting with public humiliation, then let's face it, our boy's in the pan all the time. Stick a fork in him, he's done. All I'm really saying is if we're going to bring someone up here and subject them to public humiliation, wouldn't it be a lot more fun if it were someone who wasn't used to it? All right, I'm gonna tell you about several of Dean's humiliating experiences, but I want some audience participation. So, when I ask the question, and I'm going to do it several times, who gets away with this stuff? What's the answer? Dean Trakas. All right, let's practice. Who gets away with this stuff? Dean Trakas. Okay. Dean booked Father Ard and I into a golf tournament, and he told us that we need to be there at 8:30 sharp because it's 9 o'clock shotgun start. Anybody got any idea what time Dean showed up? 9:30. Somebody won a prize. Give that man a T-shirt. Turned out to be not as big a problem as you might think because actually what Father Robert and I found out was that the tournament didn't start until 12:30 anyway. So Dean shows up and he says, 12:30, well, that's not going to be convenient for me. So he just strolls over to people that run the tournament and he says, you know, in all honesty, 12:30 is not convenient for me. My team is already here. We won't just take our scorecard out, play the course, come back, post a score, and you can call us and tell us if we won anything. Amazingly, they agreed to it. Even more amazingly, they didn't seem to think anything of it. Who gets away with this stuff? Last spring, community chorus concert. Dean's brought in to sing Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera. And on any other day, I would say something like, well,
Dean may have been a tad under-rehearsed. This is not one of these days, because I'm going to level with you. He butchered the ever-loving hell out of it. He dorked it up so bad that Andrew Lloyd Webber got an injunction. Dean can't sing any more of his stuff ever. But you know, when the song was mercifully over, who knows what's happened next?
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation. Who gets away with this stuff? Well, you know, Dean is most famous for dropping the ball. Figuratively, literally, and otherwise. So here's an eyewitness account of one of the ball drops at Tryon midnight. It gets to be 9:55, and everybody's kind of gathering around and moving toward the clock tower. And it's mostly families with young children. Now, these children have been told, if you're good, if you don't pee your pants, and you don't pitch a tantrum, you're going to get to see a doofus drop what looks like a gigantic 60s light fixture about 20 feet using a fishing pole. Well, as you might imagine, these little kids are stoked. Well, 10 o'clock comes, 10:01, 10:02, 10:03. Finally, one of these parents walked over to somebody that looked like they may be in authority somewhere or another and said, "Are we going to drop the ball?" And the guy said, "Dean does that. We don't have any idea where he is. We'll do it when he comes back." Who gets away with this stuff? You said if I could, I'd keep going.
Keep going.
All right. Okay. Now I'm going to pause to tell you my favorite golf joke. A golfer dies and goes to hell. He's a little bit disappointed to find himself there because he heard there was golf in heaven. So he goes to complain, and the employee that he's talking to, yes, there are employees in hell, and goes to the employee to complain, and the guy said, "Well, we got golf here, but there's a catch. If you're going to play golf, you got to play with Dean Trakas. And it won't just seem like eternity, it's for eternity." We're playing in this high-end golf tournament, and there's like booze on 12 of 18 holes. Fairways are immaculate. Dean hits the ball fat, takes a divot about the size of a 4-egg omelet. And instead of replacing it, he put it on his head and wore it for the next 3 holes. You know, I know some of Dean's cousins from when I worked in Spartanburg, and one day I was talking to one of them, we were talking about Dean and Tryon and all that, and I said, "You know Dean is an institution." Apparently he didn't understand what I said exactly, because he said, "I'm just glad he's getting the help he needs." And I said, no, I didn't say he's in an institution. I said he is an institution. And he said, well, in what kind of alternate universe is Dean Trakas an institution? And I said, what can I tell you, man? It's Tryon. The whole place is an institution. Well, Dean, happy 61st. I love you. And like everybody else, I don't want to. I guess that's just part of the old Trakas charm. All right, thank you.
Rob, you ready? So now, Rob, this is such a suburban intro. Rob is a retired plant manager at Timken. It sounds like I'm about to introduce you for Rotary Club. And speaking of Rotary Club, just remember that if you say anything, first of all, is it true? Is it for the good of all concerned? Yes! Please welcome Rob!
Well, thank you very much. I am glad to be here now. I do have to say that, honestly, when Wanda asked if I would be part of roasting Dean and be up here with a lot of these guys, I know their characters, and I was fearing for Dean's life or his outcome, and so I was really hesitant to respond. My wife, dear wife, recognized that I was having a problem with this, and she said something very profound. I think her exact words were, "Suck it up, Buttercup." Followed by every one of those people agreed to be on the stage, so you get up there and rip them a new one. This is a great cause. So I'm now glad to be here. Actually, when I look at this group, Dean being a celebrity and the celebrity roast and the celebrities we have here, you have to admit, Nina Simone and William Gillette have to be turning over in their grave. What passes for a celebrity nowadays? Really, the bar's on the low side, myself included. In fact, it's low enough that if this were a steeplechase, I think the jockeys could ride pot-bellied pigs and still make it on the course in record time. As you've seen, there's a lot of us that have vacationed together for many, many years. And I'm going to say something about a couple of the guys. I'd like to start off with Andy Millard. Andy is what I would consider the ringleader for the group.
Troublemaker.
That's it. We have we do the ear pull, or do the sign, Andy. It means Andy or fart, one of the two. So if you can go to the next slide. There we go. What a good-looking guy.
What a good-looking guy.
Gotta love that style. Andy's been pretty much the ringleader for the group. He's gotten us together. I've been sailing with him for almost 20 years now. In fact, a little bit over 20 years. And we always have a great time. Andy is one of the best fishermen in the group. I have to say that every time we get together, this guy is the first one to actually catch a fish when we're on vacation. Now, I'd love to tell you, and Andy probably would tell you, that it's because he's a fantastic fisherman. The reality is he's the one that owns the reel and rod, and he doesn't let anybody else touch it until he has the first fish out. Now, Andy's one of those guys that I gotta say has amazing talent. He's one of those that he sings to us typically once or twice when we're out on the boat together, and he has one of those fantastic voices. If you've ever heard him, it's worth listening to.
He does?
In fact, yeah, he does. And I have to admit, I mean, he's got really the physique and the voice of a young Sinatra. Yeah. So, Mike Caravan, the guy that you know, sitting next to last on the end, has been a friend of mine for a long time, and I'm sure this is the guy you recognize when you see the picture. When you go to what I'm used to seeing I met Mike about 40 years ago, or going on 40 years ago, and this is what he looked like. And I have to say, you're probably all wrong in your thoughts. No, he wasn't in the adult film industry. Mike is one of those guys that's a deep thinker. He's an engineer. He graduated in engineering. He's done a lot of work, and he's always thinking. In fact, he's the kind of guy you know he's going to work on a lot of problems. And if you know anybody that puts his own name on a toilet, obviously there's a lot of problems you got to work through. The next guy I'd like to talk about is Jeff Bird. Jeff's one of those guys that I met when we first moved to town about 23 years ago. And nice guy, owned the Tryon Daily Bulletin. Wrote a lot of interesting stories at the time. I always loved reading what he had to say. And I think it's that career that helps him in his current career. You see, now he's a real estate agent, and we found that out since he's moved back to town. And I gotta say, I'm very impressed, Jeff, because I understand he is the #1 salesman on two-story houses in a tri-county area. So, very good for that. I'm very impressed. Right? As I understand it, you get one story before you buy, and then after you purchase it, you get the second story. Scott Lane's one of those guys that joined our sailing group probably a little bit later than everybody else. He's actually the newbie in the group, and I have to say, oh, there we go. We already did the tug of year. That's great. But he's one of those guys, in the first couple trips, you really didn't know who he was because he was quiet, he's reserved, he's always got that Scott Lane smile there. But he just didn't say as much. So I really wasn't sure if he's the kind of guy that's just absolutely brilliant or the type of person that shows up at a gender reveal party and wonders why nobody else is naked. Chris Bartall is one of those guys. It's hard to say anything about Chris. The guy's got a heart of gold, and I think you've already heard tonight, and you'll hear more tonight about how he is the Dean Trakas babysitter on pretty much every one of the trips. So he sacrifices that. And I've often wondered why Chris would subject himself to being with a group like ours. And the only thing I can come up with is the reality is, as you know, he's been a photographer for decades. And my guess is he's probably spent too much time in the dark room and just is not seeing the light here. So let's talk about my buddy Dino. There we go. Here he is. Dino's one of those guys that's made good on pretty much everything he does. He's an extremely talented individual. Now, that's in spite of his education. I understand he went to a local community college. It's called Clemson. Every year that we're going on a trip, Dean and I have a weight loss bet. And it's one of those where all you have to do is lose a certain percentage of your body weight and you win. Well, unfortunately, Dean's never won a bet. And I think it's his approach. Usually what I do is trying to reduce my caloric intake, and I'll lose the weight over a 2-month period. Dean does intermittent fasting. While it works for some people, the Trakas version of intermittent fasting is basically fasting 8 to 9 times a day in between meals and snacks. I know Andy said, don't get political with this crowd, and Andy, I gotta apologize on this one. I had to go down this road. Dean was MAGA long before MAGA was even a thing. In fact, 23 years ago, he was coming over to my house and saying, let's make America great again. Very, very proud of his heritage, and I get that. I mean, he's the kind of guy that really oozes the support. Who's probably doing it. And I have to give him props, too. The reality is, did you know that there was an ancient Greek that invented the first alarm clock? Back, was it 3,000 years before Christ was born? It's absolutely stunning to me that in 5,000 years, he can't figure out how to use one of those clocks to get it. Now, I know you think that Dean, if you spend any time with him, he's going to tell you the Greeks invented everything under the sun. They invented the air and land and sea. And quite frankly, he forgets the small details sometimes. Now, one of the details I think you learned about the Greeks inventing sex and what happened there. Obviously, it was the Romans that went ahead and introduced it to women, which was a fantastic move. But similar to that, the toilet seat, I think, was probably one of the most important inventions to society. The Greeks invented the toilet seat, but it was the Romans that decided to put a hole in the center of it. With that, I think it's my turn to go ahead and say happy birthday, Dean. Happy birthday, may you live 1,000 years.
Sits on your lap, it could be a Bafo ventriloquist act. I'm not going to ask where you have to put your hand to get him to talk, but that's not the point. I think he would pay an extra cover charge to see that. You know, if we can have a moment here to be a little serious here. Maria Berry had a pretty tough childhood. It's hard to be Dean's sister. And but she weathered the storm, and she is here tonight to give back after all the crap he gave her growing up in the household.
Yes, absolutely. Big fat bean roasting. And if you can't tell, the nose gave it away. Oh, yeah. Then I'm his sister, yes. So I want to thank everyone, first of all, in the Tryon community for taking such good care of Dean so I don't have to. Thank you. All right, so I am not really great at public speaking, so we're going to try. And I kind of came into this job at the 11th hour. I think they took pity on me and decided to invite me to join in on this fun. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. So I just decided, you know, I've been working on this slideshow for Dean's funeral. So I'll just use that. As you can see, he's going to be leaving us any day now.
She's not joking.
Now, the funny thing is, we talked on the phone earlier today, and he told me, I'm going into the witness protection program after tonight. So, in loving memory of Dean, who thankfully is still with us to provide all of this entertainment. So, we have the next slide. So, Dean. If you know Dean well, he loves a good lederhosen, and his obsession goes back a long, long way. He never outgrew his childhood desire. Yes. So here, we have Dean telling our beautiful sister Gina, you know, Gina, one day I'm going to learn how to be a really good cook. And then you see Dean talking to his beloved grandchildren, Toti and Dexter. Look here, guys, this is how you burn dinner. So, next slide, please. Here we have Dean at the piano, where all of you know he resides most of his days. But you just don't understand how important it is to realize that a bad haircut doesn't mean that you're bad at playing the piano. And then some days you just have to put him outside because he makes such an awful racket that that's the only place he's allowed to play. All right, what do we have next? Oh, Superman, see? Dean has these superpowers, but none of them can help him be on time for any family function ever. And I know we've all used that joke. Poor Dean. He knew that his being late for everything was going to be the brunt of most of these jokes, and we have not been disappointed. So next slide, please. So here we have Dean in his many hats. This is another one of his lovely obsessions. We can go to the next one. See, we have hats and hats and hats. And I really don't know what this obsession with these crazy hats is, but his taste in hats is running in the family, as we can see. It is the same smile, yes. So here we have Dean. This is Dean in his gruesome training to become a Navy SEAL. And now that the files have been declassified because enough time has passed, I can now tell you that Dean is actually the Navy SEAL who killed Osama bin Laden. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. So, this one is great, because my poor, sweet, precious sister there on the left, Gina's just saying, "Mom, can you make it stop talking?" And Dean clearly is oblivious. He's just happy as a clam there, just jabbering away. So, yes, and as we all know, Dean does everything better upside down, as we can see from our picture of the house he first designed. So we'll have, yes, and so now most of you do not know that Dean's first desire was to become a priest. And so here he is with his childhood idol, our Reverend Beatsis, who was so dear to all of us. He did not make it into that field. Now this is a story. I wish that our dear, precious 89-year-old aunt could be here to tell this story because she would do it better than me. But you see this lovely painting and you think, how could this gorgeous painting be part of a roast? Well, let me tell you. This painting started out, and then it went on and on and on for many years. And my uncle, who went to the Citadel, this is the chapel at the Citadel, and he was doing this as a gift for our uncle. And my Uncle Greg finally said, "Dean, when am I ever going to see this painting?" So Dean finally presents it to him, but when he did, that tree over there on the right covered the entire front of the chapel. Decided to cut a few corners because he was, running late on a deadline as usual. So he looked at him and he said, "Nope, go back, start it over." So Dean had to go back and finish the painting and take the tree away and actually paint the chapel. And there it is after 25 years. And then I came into the picture, and you can see how thrilled Dean is. He loved his baby sister. He was so happy to welcome me into the family. Now, Dean, we've all heard about his diets. This one he took a little too far. And finally, so our dear cousin Steve, who you'll hear from shortly, and Dean are very close in their birthdays, and so last year we surprised them with a lovely 60th birthday party. But we didn't want to create any forest fires, so we only gave them one candle each. So with that being said, happy birthday, brother. I love you.
I like that skeleton outfit.
Oh boy, I do too.
Yeah, I bet you were the nerdy kid on the block too that had to wear his glasses on the outside of his mask. Were you? It's like that's what he would look like without it. So we're going to bring up Mike Karaman now. Now, Mike is another Ohio native here, or refugee, I guess we like to say, that worked for Tim Ken before handing it over to Rob. And after retirement, he started Karaman Properties and Construction. He's done all of Scott's renovation projects, so you get the idea that these guys are pretty tight and big drinking buddies. Mike and his other right-hand man, Jim, gutted Wanda May's 2 bathrooms. So that right there is, combat pay. And they did a complete rebuild of her kitchen, and they lived to tell about it as well. So please welcome to the podium, Mike Karaman.
And I do want to thank you, Pam. I do want to tell you that one of the bathrooms is still working, right? Good news, good news. And, and Maria, you said we had to be prepared for this? I didn't know that. Okay, well, I'd like to tell you all that I'm a really good friend of Dean Trakas. But now, I'm going to tell you the truth. He paid me $50 to be here tonight. And I hope you numbskulls got your $50. Dean, happy 61st. I can't believe it. Hey everybody, let's sing happy birthday for Dean. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dino. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Now the bad part comes. You're right, exactly. So, I've been wondering this. How did you get so much older than me all these years? I don't understand it. Yeah. Is it your lifestyle? Maybe the hurry up to get somewhere and get nothing done? Do you think that adversely affected you in any way? I don't know, just wondering. I don't know. So how did I meet these guys? I've been going on these boat trips and all these other trips for 20, 25 years. We've had a great time together. It's really, as everybody said, it started with Andy. And Andy and Dean are the best of friends. I mean, you talk about the odd couple. One guy's sloppy, dopey, and I can say a lot more adjectives. And the other guy, neat, fastidious, like, we gotta get this done right. And Dean's like, oh God, what'll happen, don't worry. And they're like the best of friends forever. I just don't get it. It's the weirdest damn thing I've ever seen. I don't know. But, being toward the end of the lineup, like everybody said everything, like, what am I going to say? I'm kind of done. But I'm going to tell you a few things about Dino. Oh, no, it's all good. Don't worry. Well, sort of. He's a great architect. You guys know that. He's won many awards for the town of Tryon. And I have to say, I've been very proud that I've collaborated with him on many things. And a few of the projects actually came in on time and budget. Right, Scott? Like 1 out of 6? 9? 1 out of 9? I don't know the numbers. It's a pretty good ratio for us. So, and of course, 1 on time. Yeah, that's good. And of course, Dean's a concert pianist. I mean, he's fabulous. He can play anywhere. He's just the greatest. But, one thing you may not know about him is he's a chef. I mean, he's really a good chef. And, he and his wife, Kelly, opened up a beautiful restaurant many, many years ago. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I'll tell you, he would make the best of dinners. They were served about 6 a.m. But they were wonderful dinners. And I can't remember the name of the restaurant. Was it Better Late Than Never? Yes. Or was it, it might be open soon? I don't remember the exact name, but something to that effect. But great place, And let me tell you something. Here we go. Did you know Dean was quite the equestrian? I mean, this probably will shock you. He really is. And I know, Pam, you are, of course. But, and Jeff Bird, great rider, I will say. But here's my boy. We went on a trip probably about 15 years ago out to New Mexico. And one of these dude ranches for a week, and you had to muck the stalls early in the morning, which is right up Dean's alley, and then eat a hearty breakfast, which actually was up Dean's alley. And then afterwards, you kind of go out, you ride all day long, and then you come back for the evening. So again, Dino with the whole scheme of things where he's going to be late, and, blah, 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 we all know. So we're like, hey, we're supposed to get up, muck the stalls, eat breakfast, he's late, so we're going to saddle up his horse. Here we go, some friends. Okay, he's looking at it, like, things look good. So we did it again. Go ahead, one more. Yeah, and there he is. He's ready to mount up. I mean, he was so appreciative of his friends. What nice guys. They mounted my horse for me. They saddled it up. This is perfect. I can mount up, and I'm ready to go. He jumps up there, and he's ready to go. And we're, the usual guys are giggling and everything, and he's like, chit-chatting, his usual, the Dean thing. And it was like, let's go. And he realizes, I don't have any reins. Like, where the hell's the head of the horse? So, horse is like, what the? Yeah, please don't make this happen. That was actually a happy horse before this event. It's like, oh my God. And Dean looks really excited, exuberant. I think he's a Rhodes Scholar in that picture. Yeah, beautiful. So I don't know. And then I want to have a shout out to Chris Bartle, of course. Thank God for Chris. We've been on all these trips for like 20 years, and if it weren't for Chris, Dean would be lost somewhere. I'm just telling you. He has been keeping track of him for like ever. Thank God. Serious note there. I don't know, maybe it'd been better he wouldn't be here, but I'm just saying, thank God, sort of, that he kept track of him. Well, I want to just tell you guys, it's been an honor to be here tonight, and I want to wish you a very happy first 60th birthday, Dean. Okay. Love you, buddy.
Let's give a big name. So we are almost here, rounding the evening out, and I think our next racer is with us by video link. Is that correct, Melinda? Yeah, Father Robert. Yeah, I do know that. Yeah. We go to the same church. It would be Father Robert. Oh, that loud guy up at the top. I know, really he is. He's almost as loud as Dean. It's so true. I've never had a priest loud. Normally when you think of like really loud preachers, you think of like the fire and brimstone. And it's not that way with Robert, but it is. It's like you don't need a hearing aid, that's for sure. So how do we proceed with that? He's going to join us because he is in Africa. Yay!
Historical Society. It is so good to be here with you via this video. I only wish I could be there with all of you. Instead, alas, I'm in Tanzania. So, I first met Dean at the gym. I know that seems hard to imagine, that somebody would first meet Dean at the gym. And the reason I met Dean is that we were the last two people in the gym. Now, on one hand, one might say that there are no two people in Tryon who need to be at the gym more than Father Robert and Dean Trakas. But here's the but. Dean and I would roll into the gym about 8:15, and theoretically the gym was supposed to close about 8:30, but they let us stay in the gym until we were done exercising. The problem is, as you know, when you meet Dean, you never get to exercise because he's talking and talking and talking. Now, I felt as though after all that talking, both his jawline and my jawline should be chiseled. Alas, we're both a little on the doughy side. Now, after meeting Dean at the gym, one could say that that would have been it, and we would have moved apart after our non-workout workouts at the gym. But what happened is what normally happens with Dean. You get taken into this kind of magical mystery tour, to borrow a phrase of the Beatles. You get brought into Dean's life little by little by little until you realize that you have been taken on this beautiful, wonderful journey. Now, after exercising with Dean Trakas, Dean thought I would be a good golf partner because, well, I was obviously at the gym getting in shape. And so he invited me a couple times to play in these golf tournaments, and one of them that he invited me to play in was during May, and I can't be there. But about on the third hole of the first time we played at the Tryon Historical Society golf meeting about 3-4 years ago, we're on the third hole, and he's waggling his 3-wood, and he waggled his 3-wood for about 4 what seemed like about 4 or 5 minutes, probably about 30 seconds. And Will Trakas and Jeff Bird were standing about 30, 40 feet away from him. And he looks up at us, and with the most serious expression on his face, he said, "I want you to know how proud I am of my humility." Now, what you have to know is this. Only Dean could say, without a faint hint of sarcasm, that indeed he was serious about being proud of his humility. Only Dean could do that. Now, here's the irony. Most people, you would call them seriously deluded by saying that they were proud of their humility. But when Dean said this, I realized it was kind of true. He was proud of his humility, and he was right to be proud of his humility. Only Dean could make pride and humility go so well together. About 3 weeks ago, now probably as you see it, 4 weeks ago, I was at the Greek Orthodox Church celebrating Greek Easter with Dean. And Dean was practicing in the choir, and I was sitting there, and this man comes up to me, and he says to me very quietly in my ear, he says, "Father Robert, does Dean come late to your church all the time?" And I said, "Why, yes, he does. He does come late all the time." And all this time, I thought it was because he was Greek. And the Greek man standing behind me said, "No, it's because he's Dean." Now, all I could say is this. I know that Tryon has fallen in love with Dean Trakas because of his eccentricities and his peculiarities. But the really amazing, wonderful part about Dean is not that he's easy to laugh at. It's not that we're making jokes about him. It's that he takes us into his life and makes us part of his life. And we get to laugh with him at all the strange, exotic, bizarre things that happen to Dean Trakas along the way. Now, I know it seems odd that we would have the man who is chronically late be the ball dropper for New Year's Eve. I know it sounds weird that a man who's constantly going in 100 different directions should in some ways be the center of the party life of Tryon. But our Dean, Dean Trakas, brings us all life and love. It's a bizarre life, and it's a bizarre life. And it's his life that he gives to us. And it makes us all better here in Tryon to know that we get to drink Deanie Teenies with Dean. Good news for all of us is that there's always more to laugh at and more to love with Dean. Thank you.
It's like an old Barry Manilow ballad. Builds to the big climax, comes down this really kind of thing. If you go to the Holy Cross Facebook page, by the way, we have just uploaded Father Robert in Tanzania at the church and doing his best to stay on beat with a lot of dancing and singing. And you can go back to his last trip where they gave him the rooster. Remember that? Yeah. And so, and because that's a symbol of we welcome you, and they gave him the rooster, and he was like, I can't put this on the plane, you know, but he was holding it and dancing with this giant rooster. You gotta see it; it's fantastic. All right, so we're closing out the evening with who else knows Dean better than, of course, Maria and his own dear brother Steve. Steve, come on up and give us a good and a bad. Dean Trakas, everybody.
Yeah, we salute you.
I brought my own teleprompter. If I can only figure out how to use it. Hi, good evening. I'm Steve Trakas. I'm the youngest grandson of Nicholas Trakas. And I make that distinction, of course, for one reason. Because Dean is much, much older than me. I don't care what Maria put on the screen, but he is much, much older than me, by about 43 days. But growing up together, we got into a lot of mischief. And thankfully, Lily and Sophia, they had a kind heart and they were very forgiving. So, but let me just share a typical day with Dean when we were young. And for the contractors out here, it's probably a little good advice. So Dean and I were enjoying one of our normal Saturday afternoons. We were about 7. We both had quite an imagination. I think Maria shared it best when she had Dean with the Superman outfit. But that day we were playing World War II. So Commando Dean won the battle that day, unfortunately. Dean threw a hammer at me. There we go, contractors in the room. And I caught it in my upper lip. So fortunately, it only required 7 stitches. So the moral is, keep sharp instruments away from Dean on the job site. You know, Dean, as I get to learn and hear all these stories in Tryon, you know, in our own family and in our growing up, Dean's known by many, many names. I've got a couple of favorites. Has anybody in the room ever heard of Dean? The name Scott Anifas? So Dean was Scott Anifas. That was his alias name as a cartoonist for Clemson in the Orange and White. Any idea what Scott Anifas means in Greek? Well, I'll leave that to your imagination. Wanda expressly told me that this needed to be PG, so I'm not going to be able to share that. But I will tell you that Uncle Perry warned Dean that Scott Anifas needed to go away. So, let me tell you about a bright sunny Saturday in about 1983 at Death Valley. Clemson played Maryland at the Orange and White game. In fact, Clemson hit a Guinness Book World Record that day, and they released about 300,000 orange balloons in the air. Thank you. But I want you to be impressed that I even remember that, okay? Okay. But the other thing, and you probably remember this, that year, Clemson added the Upper North Stand. So they increased attendance to over 80,000 people in the stadium. And Scott Anifas strikes again. He gave graphics to all the fans on how to use the cards that were in their seat. Orange and white. Now, Dean's dad, Uncle Perry, God rest his soul, he was always good for a joke, but it was no laughing matter for Uncle Perry that day. I was sure Dean got kicked out of the wheel that day when Uncle Perry got a hold of him in the parking lot. And I'm glad that the hammer wasn't inside. And I can't share that either, what was said that day. Now there's another name that Dean's been lovingly known by. And, you know, Dean, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, Dean's got a nickname, Shorty. So, you know, this is something that's deep and dark. It's a secret. And, you know,
But I was told that I could reveal anything being a family member. So Dean has served some time in prison. And Dean was known as Shorty at Perry Correctional. It's maximum security prison, Pelzer, South Carolina. No need to be alarmed because, Dean's with us, so he was released.
Thank God.
But I'll share a little more about that later. Now, one of the things that I've enjoyed listening to, and I talked to Dean earlier this week, and he asked me a few questions that I wouldn't answer. But he said, most of the room is probably going to talk to me about how punctual I am. Which, of course, he's always been. Dean procrastinates, and that started at an early age. But I will tell you that there is a well-proven scientific remedy to motivate him if you're struggling. And I'm going to tell you the secret tonight. So back in the 70s, our home church, Spartanburg, our grandfather built the church. And in the 70s, the church used to have a function called Greek Night. And what Greek Night was, it was an evening to raise money for capital improvements, much like we're doing tonight for this event. And the venue was the Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium, and over 500 people attended the event. And it was full of dinner and dance and all the trimmings. And the church even brought in a Greek band. Well, to dress up the bandstand, and keep in mind this was in the 70s, so Dean was probably about 13 years old. He was volunteered to paint a Grecian island seascape. Now, the island seascape, just to give you just an idea of what it was 4 panels at about 4 feet by 8 feet. So it was rather large, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But of course, Dean needed to be motivated because time was short. So to motivate Dean and to make sure it got done on time, our cousins would bring Dean McDonald's cheeseburgers to feed him while he was painting. Now, so, that was working. But, on one afternoon, at the appointed time, Dean went dashing out of the church hall, knowing that Nick was outside with his McDonald's hamburger, cheeseburger. And the door shut. What do you think happened? Damn, I forgot the key in the hall. The door slammed shut and they can't get back in. Well, fortunately, after sitting there thinking about it, they remembered that the window in the church on the right side, that the lock was broken. So they went over to the church and they lifted Dean about 5 feet in the air, and he got entrance into the church. And my cousin went back to the hall door waiting. So what do you think happened next? Well, time passed, and Nick was sitting there scratching his head saying, where in God's name is Dean? They were worried. Something happened to him. So they left the hall, circled back to the church, only to hear the organ in the church playing. Dean was in the church playing Bach on the church organ without a care in the world. And after a lot of time knocking and yelling, they finally got his attention. But the moral is that if Dean's late on the project, feed him. Now, I haven't seen McDonald's in Tryon, but if you go to Spartanburg, you can pick it up and bring it. But McDonald's hamburgers usually does the trick. Lena, my wife, and I, we spent a lot of time in Tryon with Dean, and we thoroughly enjoyed our visits here, especially during New Year's, and especially at the ball drop. No one really does it like you guys. It's a lot of fun. And I've been kidding Dean to run for mayor. Oh yes, as I believe others too would endorse that. And it became clear to me this past New Year's Eve when Andy Millard sat there and invited people to take pictures with Dean in the New Year's ball. And surprisingly, people actually lined up for the photo op. In fact, Lena and I walked up there for the photo op. And we had some friends with us, and they said, let's go take a picture with Dean. Well, Dean, a few of us got together, and we decided to take charge. In fact, in the audience tonight is the former Lieutenant Governor of the state of South Carolina, Nick Theodore. He's a lifelong friend, and he's with us. And he's been working in the background to actually start your campaign. In fact, while you were at the house, because you did get here at your normal time, late. In fact, Governor Theodore and Lena spent the last couple of hours placing bumper stickers and yard signs about Tryon. So tonight, we're pleased to announce Dean's candidacy for mayor of Tryon. I will say, in fairness to Dean, this campaign announcement was not approved by Dean Trakas, candidate for anything. I just hope we don't wake up tomorrow to read the headlines in the Tryon Daily Bulletin. Shorty, released from prison, announces his candidacy to run for mayor of Tryon. I do want to put closure on Dean's time in prison because I think everybody here knows what a big heart Dean has. And it was Dean's big heart that guided him to do prison ministry at Perry Correctional. He's welcome there anytime with open arms. So finally, and I've been waiting a long time for this. So, in the early 80s, Dean and I decided to go attend Charlotte's first night.
Yeah, I remember
You did. And I think this is about the time that Shen started the Hornets back early 80s, in the mid-80s. And so we were walking around Tryon Street, and we passed the front doors of one of the magnificent churches, and it's probably about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30. And as fellow musicians, we thought, why not? Let's walk into church, let's go listen to the music, but we were inebriated.
No, we weren't.
Yeah, we were. And we thought, better not. So about that time, after we came to our senses, we weren't going to go walk in the church and make fools of ourselves. A homeless person approached us. And he was asking for help. So, Dean was always quick to say something. So he looked at the guy and he said, my rich cousin over here is loaded. And he can help you out. And Dean just kept walking. I did help the guy out. But as I said, I've been waiting on this moment for a very, very long time. So Wanda, whatever you don't raise tonight to fund the expansion of what you're doing, this wonderful work, my rich cousin Dean will cover the difference. So I want to give a toast to Dean. In toasting Dean,
And you probably recognize this. I'll let them pour up. But you probably recognize this.
Oh, I do recognize it.
So this
You
is
can tell all about it.
So this is the second time that any liquid has been put in here. And the first time there was liquid in here. And what it is, it's a flask. It's a beautiful flask that was given to me. And it's the day that Kelly and Dean got married. And he gave all his groomsmen the flask to remember. And I thought it was appropriate tonight to bring this out to toast you. Dean, you've always been a brother. And I love you for always being there. Happy birthday. And enjoy this.
Back up there a little bit. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, I was going to keep that. I thought that was part of the ticket price tonight. Doesn't everybody get that? Now, before you go anywhere, Dean, we got some presents for you, but just the bottom one is the biggest one of all. Happy birthday, baby.
Oh, stop.
And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and Tryon. And thank you, special man, for all the men who worked tirelessly to bring this on. Thank you, guys. Good night. God bless
I said I was going to really, save all my ammunition for the big comeback after all this. But, they were really nice to me. They could have been a lot worse. And y'all all know, there's really nothing that was said here that we don't know already. That we are. And you know what? It is what I am. And I just got to tell you. I'm really drunk, and I promised that I would be tonight. So without really throwing darts at all my best buddies up here, not to mention all of y'all, I just want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you to Wanda for being a great inspiration behind this, and for Pam for being the great control of all this chaos up here. And not to mention all my great friends, and I just tell you, it's great. And you know what the best part is? I could have left a lot earlier tonight if I really wanted to. I've been threatening this for weeks now, but considering this is for our great museum, and Dick, thank you again, and all of you. And I want y'all to know that our History Museum is so important to this town and to what Tryon is all about. So y'all need to keep supporting it. And that's what really this is all about at the end. So thank y'all so much.